Parents of this child art prodigy may not be telling us the whole story. Well-dressed adults mingled in an upscale gallery, glasses of champagne in hand. Abstract paintings lined the white walls, and the whole room was aflutter with excitement. No one could stop talking about the artist of the night, a child no more than 3 feet tall. This was Marla Olmstead, and as her legend grew in the fine art world, so did the questions surrounding her awe-inspiring creativity. Was this little girl concealing a big secret? Marla was born at the turn of the millennium in Binghamton, New York. Early on, she enjoyed playing in her backyard, watching cartoons, and hanging out with her parents, Mark and Laura, as well as her younger brother, Zane. Then, at age 3, everything changed. Her grandfather passed away. Afterwards, a grieving Mark Olmstead took up painting as a distraction. One day, in an attempt to occupy his daughter while he tried to focus, he offered her a paintbrush of her own. According to her parents, there was something special about whatever she painted. The pieces, though mostly abstract, just seemed advanced for her age. On a whim, they hung up one of her paintings in a local coffee shop. This unleashed the floodgates. Soon, coffee drinkers started to inquire about the price of the piece, which hadn't even been for sale. Mark and Laura were in awe that someone seriously wanted to pay money for a work painted by their toddler. They sold Marla's art a whopping $253. Things only snowballed from here. And at first, the attention was glowingly positive. The local art gallery asked Marla to hold a show. People attended and were enthralled by her work. Her talent, guests whispered, was undeniable. Soon, everyone wanted a Marla original. A local paper picked up the story of the child prodigy, and the kid at the center of this one captured the attention of some pretty important figures. Pretty soon, the New York Times ran a profile on her. The story focused a spotlight on Marla. Art collectors were now bidding tens of thousands of dollars on her work. Mark and Laura were taken aback, but also incredibly proud to know that virtual strangers saw the same talent in their daughter that they did. Quickly, they would learn to regret the whole thing. At her peak, as many as 200 people were lining up to get their own piece by the talented tot. Critics compared her to Jackson Pollock, the artist famous for his splattered paintings. While some were skeptical that Marla was all she was chalked up to be, the main narrative was one of adoration and praise. Then, the 60 Minutes segment happened. This should have been just another step towards fame for the young artist, showcasing her talents and feeding into her widespread acclaim. In reality, it nearly ruined their lives. Producers approached the Olmsteads in February of 2005, hoping to run a story on Marla. Mark and Laura agreed. The show did have one request, though, to install hidden video cameras that would film Marla as she painted. The world wanted to watch the artist work. The Olmsteads, again, agreed. So, 60 Minutes set up cameras, laid out a canvas, and asked Marla to paint. So, she did. For 5 hours, she worked on a piece that was supposed to showcase her skills. On the night that the segment aired, the family watched on TV. While watching the segment, Mark was furious. Laura was terrified. The show was not celebrating Marla, but rather held an interview Ellen Winner, a woman specializing in child prodigies. "I saw no evidence that she was a child prodigy in painting," Ellen said, after watching footage of Marla. "I saw a normal, charming, adorable child painting the way preschool children paint, except that she had a coach who kept her going," she admitted. Viewers across the nation were shocked as Winner went on to say that the piece shown on 60 Minutes appeared to be less polished than some of Marla's previous works. The implications were clear. Not only was Marla not the prodigy she'd been made out to be, but she also may have had outside help. The media went wild, accusations flew, and the predominant line of thinking was that Mark, the amateur painter, was at least helping Marla complete her works. People felt lied to and betrayed. The family watched as their 15 minutes of fame turned into a virtual nightmare. Then, an opportunity arose that the Olmsteads thought may be their last chance to redeem themselves in the public eye. A documentarian by the name of Amir Bar-Lev approached them with an interest in doing a film on the situation. Mark and Laura hastily consented. Barlev insisted he was going into the production with an open mind. He wasn't aiming to expose the family as frauds, but rather tell an objective account of things. Still, if he was going to do it right, he'd need his own proof that Marla was doing the paintings independently. So, once again, a videographer was setting up a camera and laying out a canvas. Marla began to paint. However, after a while, the little girl began asking questions that raised some serious red flags. Throughout the duration of the tape, she asked her dad Mark if he'd draw a face on the canvas, and at one point asked him to take over control of the brush altogether. This would prove to be the last straw for the family's failing reputation. When the documentary aired, the Olmsteads refused to attend the premiere, claiming it was unfairly edited to portray them as dishonest scammers. Today, when a much older Marla is asked if she considers herself a child prodigy, she has an answer ready to go. "I don't think of myself in that way at all," Marla Olmstead said when asked about her past. She's forged on with her career, though the criticism has kept up to some degree. Still, it's not the first time a Pollock-like painting has come under fire in the art world. It turns out you don't even have to be an artist to be labeled a fraud. Terry Horton didn't like the painting she found thrifting. There was, however, something about it that caught her attention. It was 1992, and she had just started her days as a self-proclaimed thrifter. She was stepping into a nightmare similar to Martha's. For 20 years, Terry worked as a big rig driver. She was forced into retirement after a trucking accident sent her to the hospital. Not one to stay idle, Terry began to frequent thrift stores in search of hidden treasures. In fact, she'd already had some success. Once while scavenging, Terry came across a gorgeous watch that she immediately brought to a pawn shop. It turned out to be a genuine Ebel worth $2,000. This find made Terry all the more cocky. She vowed this would be just the beginning of her incredible discoveries. The painting at the thrift store was a bit eccentric for Terry's taste. Still, she thought perhaps one of her friends might appreciate it. The $5 sale was quick and painless. Terry loaded the painting into her car, drove home, and called up her friend. However, there was a small issue. Her friend loved the painting, but it was too big to fit through her trailer door. Reluctantly, Terry kept the painting and hid it away. After all, it was a giant canvas with a bunch of splatters on it. Who'd want to see that? Years later, Terry decided to have a yard sale. Terry's yard sale featured an array of trinkets and antiques she'd collected over the years. None of the offers, however, were meeting her expectations. Terry noticed a woman approach the $5 painting, and she rushed over to make an offer. The woman gave her a rather unexpected response. The woman insisted that Terry's offer was too low. When asked why she felt that way, the woman told Terry she was an art teacher with a wealth of art history knowledge. Terry's painting, the woman claimed, could potentially be worth millions. Millions. Terry knew she had a good eye, but didn't think it was that good. Terry asked who might have made the painting. The woman claimed it was likely the work of the famous artist, Jackson Pollock. "Who is Jackson Pollock?" Terry asked. An American painter in the early 1900s, Jackson Pollock was famous for abstract expressionism, which essentially means a lot of splattering. Don't be fooled, though. He used different methods of pouring and splashing to create images that are, well, hard to explain. Take a look for yourself. Whether you appreciate Pollock's work or not, which Terry did not, anyone can see how unique it is. There appear to be images of faces and shapes woven into the splatters that, upon closer inspection, simply disappear. Terry started to think this painting shouldn't be sitting in her driveway. Once home, Terry began researching this strange Pollock character. She saw the iconic work that the art teacher was describing and called her son into the room. With excitement, they hired a forensic expert to evaluate the piece. Thankfully, the expert was able to uncover some remaining fingerprints. While the prints were being tested, the expert took a look at well-known pieces by Pollock to find similarities. After hours of searching, he came to Terry with an astounding discovery. Although the prints proved undeterminable, both Terry and her son were overjoyed by the expert's proposition. The expert believed Terry's $5 painting was remarkably similar to one of Pollock's most famous pieces, No. 5, 1948. That title just sounded like gibberish to Terry. What she did understand, however, was the price it had sold for, $140 million. Even if Terry's painting made that, her family would be rich. Unfortunately, art historians weren't in agreement. Many were insulted by Terry's insistence that this was a first draft of Pollock's world-famous painting. Every museum she brought it to rejected the artwork, claiming there were too many lingering questions. For example, how could the piece have traveled so far without ever being noticed? Terry lived in California, while Pollock had lived on the other side of the country. Perhaps, Terry suggested, this painting was a throwaway that Pollock gifted to his brother who also lived in California. However, this was unlikely, as Pollock's brother was aware of his siblings' fame. Then there was another glaring issue. The painting lacked a signature, which would have been the key to its identification. Terry couldn't even backtrack the sales records as the thrift store had shut down years ago. With so many obstacles in her way, Terry had to think bigger. Terry decided to hire a professional art dealer. This way, she figured she could get around the art snobs and nail down the price she deserved. Not long after, Terry received offers from private dealers as high as $2 million. But she couldn't get $140 million out of her head. She insisted on more. The painting soon caught the attention of a Saudi art collector. This time, Terry was offered $9 million. To her son's dismay, Terry denied this gargantuan offer without blinking an eye. She said, "I know what it's worth and I'm not going to sell for something less than it should go for." So, what happened next? To this day, Terry is holding out for the best offer. She's appeared on talk shows, spoken out against art elitism, and become something of a pop sensation with the release of a documentary appropriately titled, Who the Blank is Jackson Pollock? Director Harry Moses sides with Terry as he explained to the New York Times. It's a story of the art world looking down its collective nose at this woman with an 8th grade education. Think you'd hold out as long as Terry Horton? Or would you have spent that $5 on a coffee?